Hi, everybody. I'm Jason Cusick. I'm the lead pastor of Journey of Faith. And if this is your first time with us, thanks for being with us. We're starting a new series of messages today called Next Level. And the idea behind these messages is that it's really easy for us to kind of live our lives on autopilot. We just kind of go with the flow, do what's expected of us. Maybe we have like a normal rhythm to our lives. But inside a lot of us, we're thinking to ourselves, isn't there more to life than this? Maybe inside we all kind of deal with a certain dissatisfaction with relationships, or we might be unsure about our identity, or we feel like there's another layer of our faith that we could be living. And I think 2020 has just increased those thoughts and feelings for us. But if there's one person who really had life figured out, it was Jesus. Jesus was living on the next level. So during the series, we're going to look with fresh eyes at 6 really common areas of life, like success or how we relate to our bodies, relationships. And we're going to see what Jesus says about those areas of our life and how Jesus can take us to the next level in our thinking and in our living. Let me start by telling you a story about a trip I took earlier this year to Colorado. I was going to a leadership conference for pastors out there, and it was hosted by one of my friends, Brady Boyd. Here's a picture of he and I. He's been a mentor of mine, really great guy who's helping me think in next level ways about things. So I walked up to the building for the first day of the conference, and there was this huge tub of water bottles. And there's someone out there saying, "Welcome. Please take some water, stay hydrated." And I was like, thanks. And I grabbed one and I took a little drink of water. But like every hour or so throughout the conference, they were like, hey, make sure you're staying hydrated. And honestly, it got a little old to me because I know how much water I need to be drinking to stay hydrated. So I kind of tuned them out a bit. I was kind of closed off a little. And actually, during one of the very kind announcements about water, they were like, make sure you're still drinking your water. And I found myself kind of pridefully looking around to people like, yeah, it's important. You should do that. Make sure you're staying hydrated, everybody. Now, here's the important part of the story that some of you know that I didn't know. And that is Colorado is located at a higher elevation than California. And the high altitude and the low pressure causes moisture to evaporate from the skin. And it makes it hard to gauge your hydration levels. So you could be dehydrated and not even know it. And some of you know where this story is going. So the 2-day conference ends. I'm at the airport getting ready for my flight, and the room just starts spinning. And I am lightheaded. I'm about to pass out. And I head to the restroom, splash water on my face, and I'm looking at myself in the mirror going, darn it, you didn't drink enough water. I have been dehydrated for 2 days. Now, what happened? The people hosting that conference could have just assumed that we outsiders know how much we need to not be dehydrated. Or they could have said, we have our water. We hope you brought some for yourself because you're going to need it. But they didn't. They knew what we needed, and they made it a priority to share what they had with us. And it made me think about the next level topic we're going to look at today, and that's the topic of faith. Now, faith can mean a lot of things, but for the sake of this discussion, we're going to use the word faith to mean our connection with God. For some of you, that faith is based on a long-standing relationship with God where you've accepted his forgiveness and you're letting him lead you in your life. But for others, you're just exploring your connection with God and what that could look like for you and for your family. Now, the funny thing about faith is no matter where we're at on that continuum, we often accidentally treat faith as something extremely personal, something just between us and God. And that's certainly at a core of it. But if we look at Jesus's faith, what we're going to find is that his connection with God wasn't something to be hoarded or protected. It was something to be shared generously. like that water. So our next level main point today is not only is our faith deeply personal, but our faith can change the lives of those around us. Faith is life transforming for us, but our faith can also have an enormous positive impact on the lives of those we interact with every day. So we're going to look at two characteristics of Jesus and his faith, and we're going to see how we can adopt those same characteristics in our connection with God. And here's the first place we're going to look at in the Bible to see about Jesus' faith. Luke 15, verses 1 through 7. Now, I've been reading this book, Luke, a little bit each week as just a way to personally learn more about Jesus. And I'm really excited because I'm right in this section this week. It just happened to line up like that. So let's see what it says. Tax collectors and other notorious sinners often came to listen to Jesus teach. This made the Pharisees and teachers of religious law complain that he was associating with such sinful people, even eating with them. So it starts here with a conflict. There were these really religious people who were upset because Jesus was spending time with people who didn't believe and live like they did. Now, this makes sense, I guess. I mean, we'd all think if Jesus was here in the flesh and blood, he'd probably want to be with us and not those people that we disagree with. And whether you're a person of faith or not, we tend to feel more comfort and connection with people who are like us, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, unless the time we spend together causes us to be more closed off to people who believe differently, which is the next level faith Jesus was trying to get these people to see. So he tells them a story. Let's look at that story. If a man has 100 sheep and one of them gets lost, what will he do? Won't he leave the 99 others in the wilderness and go search for the one that's lost until he finds it? And when he's found it, he'll joyfully carry it home on his shoulders. And when he arrives, call together all of his friends and neighbors, saying, "Rejoice with me, because I have found my lost sheep." He says, in the same way, there's more joy in heaven over one lost sinner who repents and returns to God than the 99 others who are righteous and haven't strayed away. So where Jesus lived, there were a lot of shepherds. And what he was saying to them was, you know what we do when we have a wandering sheep, right? You leave the ones who are okay, and you go after the one that's gone away. And you do that because you care. And he was comparing sheep with people. And Jesus was saying this next level truth. Faith helps us to be open to connecting with people who believe differently than us. Sometimes our faith tends to make us less open to connecting with people who believe differently. I was thinking about why this happens. Here's some reasons I thought of, and maybe you can relate to them in yourself. One of them is the fear of scandal. Sometimes I'm concerned that if I'm with people who believe and think and live and vote differently, that other people will think that I agree with them on everything they think and believe. But that actually didn't stop Jesus. In fact, Jesus often got in trouble because his desire to help people connect with God led him to always hang out with what other people thought were the wrong kind of people, right? Here's another one, fear of changing. Sometimes I'm worried that connecting with people who believe differently will change my beliefs. Of course, I've noticed I have some wrong beliefs and some biased beliefs that actually need to change. And it's better when I'm with people who believe differently because I can see things more clearly. But my most important beliefs about God's love and forgiveness and hope, that's actually what should fuel me to connect with people who believe differently. Here's another one, peer pressure. I have people around me who have a very powerful us versus them way of looking at things. Let's stay over here, and those people that believe that, they should be over there because they're very different than us. Some of you grew up in churches like this. I think this is exactly what Jesus was trying to break down. Here's another one, insecurity. I think this is a big one. Sometimes I'm nervous about being judged or misunderstood or saying the wrong thing. I'm always trying to remind myself that other people feel the same way. I think what Jesus is trying to teach me is that conversation repair is better than conversation avoidance. And here's one more. I've forgotten that I've been there. At one time or another, we're all those lost sheep that Jesus found and is finding. All of us have had people in our lives who have crossed barriers and boundaries and showed us love and grace and understanding when other people were pushing us away. When it comes to faith, I've been a follower of Jesus for over 25 years, and I'm always trying to remind myself, like, what was it like to not be connected with God, to not know anything about the Bible, to be kind of curious but also suspicious of Christians? That helps me reach out to people who are different than me. Maybe some of you actually feel some of those feelings right now. I'll tell you, when I read this story of Jesus, I was just shook. When I'm reading about the part of the 99 and the 1, I realize I'm part of the 99 that Jesus is leaving. Here's what I mean. I think if Jesus was here in flesh and blood and I said to him, hey, come on over to my house for a Bible study, he'd show up, he'd look around, and he'd say, I gotta go. And I'd be like, what do you mean? We want you here. We want to learn more. We want to grow deeper with you. And he'd say, you got this. You're all Christians. You know how to pray. You know how to read your Bible. You know how to apply it to your lives. You know how to connect with each other. Follow my spirit and you're going to be fine. I'm going to go hang out with the people who don't know any of these things yet. I mean, in some ways, the best thing the 99 could have done was to say, Jesus, can we go with you? Now, there's some of us, some of you are Christians. I want you to know, like, I'm not talking down about our Bible studies or our fellowship or our time to worship together. Don't hear me that. Our time together as followers of Jesus is super important. But as I was reading this, I kind of asked Jesus, are you saying that God is more happy with just one person who comes to faith than all of us who believe and gather together regularly and worship and pray and are growing deeper in your word? And I think Jesus was like, yeah, that's what I just said. That's why I came to earth. And that's how I want you to see things too. That's the story of the 99 and the 1. And that's the next level thinking about faith. Now, it's not really that different than what we talk about all the time here at Journey of Faith. In fact, last week, we invited some of you to make a first-time decision and say yes to God's love and forgiveness in Jesus. And 7 of you did that and texted us and said that you made a first-time decision to follow Jesus. And I want to say to you today, you are the most important people to us. For those of you who call Journey of Faith your church, you know that we all have this passion, like Jesus, to help people find God. And we're all about going with Jesus to find the one. I want to talk more about this at our upcoming town hall, but we believe that online is really one of the greatest opportunities we have right now to help people connect with Jesus. So I want to encourage all of you, would you keep connecting with people who believe differently than you, and people who are not already connected with the church, invite them to join us online. And here's another action step for us this week, though. Ask God to make you more open to connecting with someone who believes differently than you. This is really a comfort challenge, right? What are your barriers to connecting with someone who believes differently? Maybe they're one of the ones or more than one of the ones that I listed. And how can God help you overcome that barrier? Are there people in your life who believe differently than you that Jesus wants to spend more time with through your relationship with them? And maybe as a way to start, you could just look for areas of agreement and commonality and build on those. I often connect with people about simple things like family or health. And that gets us off on good footing. How can you reach out to people that believe differently? Our faith can change the lives of those around us. And one characteristic of Jesus was that he was open. He was open to connecting with people who believe differently. And he wants us to be open like that too. Okay, here's one more characteristic of Jesus that we can learn from. It's found here in Luke 14, verses 7 through 11, same book of the Bible. And it takes place at a dinner party that Jesus went to. It says, when Jesus noticed that all who had come to the dinner were trying to sit in the seats of honor near the head of the table, he gave them this advice. When you're invited to a wedding feast, don't sit in the seat of honor. What if someone who's more distinguished than you, who has also been invited, shows up, and then the host will come and say, give this person your seat. Then you'll be embarrassed, and you'll have to take whatever seat is left at the foot of the table. He says, instead, take the lowest place at the foot of the table. Then when your host sees you, he will come and say this, friend, we have a better place for you. Then you'll be honored in front of all the other guests. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. It's a great example from a dinner party in a shame culture that Jesus was in. Embarrassment was a big deal. And he points to the importance of humility. Jesus used this common situation in his day, finding a seat at a dinner party, to tell us something really important about faith. Here's what it is. Faith helps us stay humble in our relationships with others. Jesus' example of seats at a wedding reminds me of this YouTube clip that I saw of people fighting over a chair at the end of a game of musical chairs. Here's the video. Take a look at this. Here they are. And then the music stops and they race for the chairs. And she's like, I'm not going to have it. And then she's like, I got the chair. I got the chair. And then she falls over too. Some of us are like this. With work, school, money, conversations, it's all about us first. We live in a culture where people are yelling shotgun, right? Because they want the chair. Jesus is like, there's no scarcity of chairs. Give someone else your chair. I'll give you another one. I live in a house that's located at a three-way stop. I took a Google map shot of it. And my driveway is this fourth direction. And most people never expect a car to come out of that way. So the other day, I'm pulling out, and there's this car coming, and this guy was just going to blow through the stop because he didn't see anybody else at any of the stop signs. So he sees me at the last minute pulling out, and he slams on his brakes, and he's kind of embarrassed. He's kind of like the person taking the chief seat, and he ended up apologizing to me. And it made me think about that stop sign. Humility is like a stop sign. It's a stop sign that prevents us from being selfishly absorbed and myopic in our goals, in our pursuits, in our views, or our preferences. Humility reminds us to stop, listen, ask questions, put other people first. It also helps us to stop ourselves from seeing ourselves as superior, more intelligent, more evolved, better than others. Sometimes we do that when we believe a different way. We think, well, I'm the enlightened one. When we believe with somebody, when we interact with somebody that believes differently, sometimes we feel like we are smarter or better. Every time we practice humility, just like every time we honor a stop sign, we're developing muscle memory in our souls. We're reminding ourselves that others matter, that Jesus cares about people. And we're reminded that pride is one of the greatest saboteurs of our faith. Jesus was humble, and he wants us to be humble too. Now, some of us have blown through that humility stop sign, and we've caused pride accidents. Our pride has caused damage. And our faith in God should spur us to repair some of that damage. So here's an action step for you this week. Recognize and repair damage done by your pride. What would that look like for you? Some of you have relationships that have been damaged by your pride. In your need to be right, you have been rude. Our pride can lead us to be overly critical. I talked to somebody the other day that said that, the research shows us that in relationships, we need to consider for every one criticism, we should have 5 encouragements or compliments. So do you need to do some repair work with someone? Apologize, find a way to reconnect with someone again? Maybe rethink your criticism to encouragement ratio. Maybe your pride is actually keeping you from connecting with someone who believes differently, just like it kept the religious leaders and teachers of the law in Jesus' day from doing that. Let's take our faith to the next level. Let's take on a couple of characteristics that Jesus had in his faith. One, we can be open to connecting with people who believe differently than us. And 2, we can stay humble in our relationships with others. When I was at that conference in Colorado, those people at the conference, they knew something I didn't know. They knew I was going to get dehydrated, and they cared enough about me to share what they had. Our communities and the people in our lives are spiritually dehydrated, and we might be too. Sometimes we treat our faith as something to be hoarded or protected, or we're closed. Jesus saw his faith as open and humble and something to be shared generously with others. And he's inviting us to the next level. So we can be vessels of the refreshing water of God's love and forgiveness and new life. And you know what? I can't wait to hear about all the groups that are forming this week and what we're going to be able to learn together about this topic. Let me pray. Gracious God, thank you so much. Thank you for giving us a picture of what it means to have a faith that's like yours, a faith that's open to connecting with others, not afraid, not hoarding, not protecting, but generous. And God, thank you that faith that you want for us also reminds us to be humble, to not view ourselves as superior, but to see ourselves as servants. We are here to help the people around us in our lives to experience what you help us to experience, and that is your love and forgiveness and the power of having you lead our lives. Give us that openness and humility this week. In Jesus' name, amen.